Revelation 2092. From the 1st and the 2nd of October 1941. World events. Deed and will. Impact. God's will reigns in heaven and on earth, and His love and wisdom determine everything that happens on earth as well as in the beyond. Everything is predetermined but conditioned by human will as far as earthly events are concerned. Therefore it is wrong to assume that human arbitrariness could overrule divine laws. It is wrong for people to believe that they can influence earthly events. For God's will first has to give its approval before human will can take effect. And God also gives His approval and does not hinder human will. But He then directs all events according to His will. And thus people can think and act completely freely. But what God does not want does not happen, because His will is decisive. The human being must possess this realization in order to leave himself completely carefree to God. He must know that nothing can come upon him if it is not God's will. He must know that what comes upon him finds its explanation in God's omnipotence, love and wisdom and can be a blessing for him, and that the will of his fellow human beings can indeed indirectly be an occasion for shaping his earthly life, but that it nevertheless remains up to God which effect this human will have. If the will is good, it will also conform to divine will, for then it will be good forces which influence the human being in accordance with God's will. Then the human being's will always express itself such that it corresponds to what God has decided in His wisdom. For everything good is divine, it is the expression of divine will. The bad will, on the other hand, strives for that which is directed against God. But in order to be able to carry it out, the human being has to make use of a power which, however, comes to him from God. The life force which only enables him to carry out his will. Consequently, a bad deed can only be carried out if God allows it, otherwise He would have to end the person's life if He wanted to prevent him. Or He directs other events such that it becomes impossible to carry out a bad deed. But the human being's will then be judged the same as the accomplished deed. However, if God allows the human being to turn his will into a deed, then this deed is a process. An event in human life which serves the soul's higher development again. For the bad is not always acknowledged, it can also have good educational consequences by causing disgust and encouraging the striving for good action and thinking. And God knows about the effect of every bad deed and therefore allows it, because His love and wisdom constantly applies to the still imperfect souls which need the most diverse means of education in order to mature. He certainly allows the bad, but He never calls it good. What is born of evil will cannot find His approval, yet since He gave the human being free will for the duration of his earthly existence, he cannot be hindered in this will. But it would be an obstacle if he were deprived of the strength to carry out his will. On the other hand, however, world events have been determined since eternity, for God directs the effect of every evil deed in such a way as He recognizes in His wisdom to be beneficial for the souls. And human will gives rise to this, but God directs it according to His wise discretion. And the human being is completely uninvolved in the effect, although it appears as if people themselves determine world events. God's wisdom never allows such things to happen, and in the knowledge of this the human being should accept everything because it is necessary for his spiritual state. He should not rebel against his fate. He should certainly detest what he recognizes as wrong. He should never approve of what evil human will has caused. But no matter how it comes about, he must regard it as God's providence, who allows the evil will of men, that is its effect, to become a school of the Spirit. If a person is good, that is, if he detests bad deeds, then he will not need painful means of education. and then everything difficult and seemingly insurmountable will pass him by without affecting him exceptionally. But very few people are so perfect that they are completely free of guilt. This awareness should also enable them to bear the fate that has befallen them. Only when the human being completely surrenders his will to God, when he has become silent in God, then he will no longer need such means of education, and then suffering and sorrow will pass him by and he will hardly pay attention to what is happening in the world. Amen.